The coin jackpot. Today, we are going to talk about 4 U.S. Lincoln wheat pennies that can be worth more than $90,000. This does not mean that every coin you see is worth that much. However, the coins I will show in this video, if they have the minting errors I describe, could be worth up to $90,000. These valuable minting errors can make a huge difference in a coin's value and could potentially change your life. Check your drawers and old coin collections to see if you have any of these coins and whether they contain the minting errors discussed in this video. To learn about these minting errors, watch the entire video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start the video. A 1957 wheat penny has been linked to values approaching $23,000. And what's truly surprising is that some of these coins spent years hiding in ordinary collections before collectors realized what they had. Today, we're following the trail of one of the most fascinating treasure hunts in American coin collecting. Imagine walking into an old estate sale. Boxes of forgotten belongings sit stacked in a corner. Dust covers everything. Most people rush toward jewelry, antiques, and furniture, but tucked away inside a small tin box is a handful of old pennies. One of them reads 1957. Most people would move on. A treasure hunter wouldn't. Because the 1957 wheat penny comes from the final years of the famous wheat cent series, a design that had already circulated through wars, economic booms, and major moments in American history. By 1957, these pennies were everywhere. Billions existed. Yet hidden among them were mistakes, varieties, and rare survivors that would one day capture the attention of serious collectors. The challenge isn't finding a 1957 wheat penny. The challenge is finding the right one. The late 1950s were busy years inside U.S. mint facilities. Machines worked continuously to satisfy demand for circulating coinage. Every day, countless planchets moved through presses at incredible speed. Most coins emerged exactly as intended. Some did not. Tiny mechanical failures, worn dies, misalignments, unexpected debris. Each created opportunities for unusual coins to enter circulation. At the time, nobody knew which mistakes would become future collectibles. Today, those overlooked. Production accidents are exactly what treasure hunters seek. How the 1957 wheat penny was made. Before searching for valuable errors, it helps to understand the journey each penny took. The process began with metal strips. Machines punched round blanks from those strips. These blanks, called planchets, were cleaned and prepared for striking. Next came the coin presses. A planchet entered between two dies carrying the coin's design. Under enormous pressure, the image of Abraham Lincoln appeared on one side while the iconic wheat ears appeared on the reverse. When everything aligned perfectly, a normal penny was born. When something went wrong, a collectible error could emerge, and that's where the hunt becomes interesting. Let's begin with the error that made the 1957 wheat penny famous. The 1957 double-die obverse is one of the most recognized Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered. On genuine examples, strong doubling appears in the lettering and date. Unlike minor forms of doubling, this variety is often visible without extreme magnification. Collectors immediately recognize it. Lower-grade examples often sell between $800 and $2,500. Nicely preserved pieces can reach $3,000 to $10,000. Exceptional certified examples have achieved values approaching or exceeding the $23,000 range. This is the treasure every 1957 penny hunter dreams of finding. A coin that looked ordinary to countless people, but turned out to be extraordinary. Not every valuable discovery involves dramatic doubling. Sometimes the clue appears as a raised line crossing part of the design. These are die cracks. As mint dies age, stress can cause fractures to form. Each crack transfers onto the coin struck afterward. Small die crack examples generally sell for $15 to $75. More prominent cracks can bring $100 to $400. Large, visually impressive crack patterns may exceed $500, especially when combined with strong overall condition. Many collectors overlook these pieces. Experienced treasure hunters never do. Now imagine a planchet entering the press slightly out of position. The dies strike anyway. The result is an off-center error. Part of the design is missing while a blank area appears on the coin. Small off-center examples often sell for $40 to $150. Coins struck 20% to 30% off-center frequently reach $200 to $700. Major off-center strikes retaining a visible date can command $1,000 to $4,000 or more. These errors stand out immediately. You don't need years of experience to recognize that something unusual happened. Every treasure hunt includes surprises. Struck-through errors are exactly that. A foreign object interferes with the striking process. Grease, cloth fibers, metal fragments, or other debris prevent part of the design from forming correctly. The obstruction disappears. The evidence remains. Minor struck-through grease errors often trade for $20 to $100. More dramatic examples commonly sell for $150 to $600. Rare and visually striking pieces may exceed $1,000. Each one captures a split second of chaos inside the minting process. Sometimes a die doesn't merely crack, it loses an entire piece. When that happens, metal flows into the missing area and creates a raised blob called a cud. Collectors love these errors because they're dramatic and easy to identify. Smaller cuds generally bring $50 to $250. Larger examples often sell between $300 and $1,500. Spectacular cuds on well-preserved coins can bring even more. They're tangible evidence that a production tool was literally breaking apart while coins continued to be struck. Another fascinating discovery is the broad strike. Normally, a collar keeps the coin contained during striking. If that collar fails, the coin spreads outward. The result is a wider than normal penny with unusual proportions. Broad strikes often sell between $50 and $200. High-grade examples can reach $300 to $800. They're less famous than double dies but remain highly collectible. The hidden multiplier, condition. Here's the secret that separates ordinary finds from major discoveries. Condition. Two identical error coins can have dramatically different values. One may sell for a few $100s. The other may sell for several thousand. Why? Because collectors pay heavily for preservation. Professional grading services examine surface quality, original color, luster, strike sharpness, eye appeal. Coin-graded MS-65, MS-66, or higher can command many times more. That's why serious collectors handle potential discoveries with extreme care. Every fingerprint, scratch, or cleaning attempt can reduce value. The final stretch of the hunt now, let's return to the number that started this journey, $23,000. That level isn't reserved for average 1957 wheat pennies. It's the territory of exceptional coins, especially high-grade examples of the famous double die variety. Most 1957 pennies remain common. Most will never command huge prices, but hidden among millions of surviving examples are genuine treasures still waiting to be recognized. And history shows that many important discoveries weren't made by professional dealers. They were made by ordinary people willing to look closely. The next time a 1957 wheat penny crosses your path, don't treat it like spare change. Examine every letter, every number, every edge, and every detail. Search for doubling, cracks, missing design elements, strange indentations, or unusual shapes. Because somewhere out there, another valuable 1957 wheat penny is still hiding in a forgotten coin jar, old collection, or family keepsake box. And the next great discovery might happen the moment someone decides to stop looking at pennies as pocket change and start looking at them as buried treasure. What if the small 1964 Lincoln penny sitting unnoticed in a jar could be connected to a coin that sold for nearly $19,000? It sounds unbelievable, but a handful of rare 1964 cents have stunned collectors with values that far exceed their 1-cent face value. The real question is, how do you know if yours is one of them? The 1964 Lincoln cent wasn't released during an ordinary year. America was changing rapidly. New technologies were appearing, the economy was expanding, and everyday cash transactions depended heavily on coins. Pennies were constantly moving through banks, stores, vending machines, and pockets across the country. Because demand for small change was enormous, the U.S. Mint produced billions of cents. Most entered circulation and lived hard lives. They were dropped, scratched, spent, and forgotten. Yet hidden among those billions were a small number of coins that escaped the mint with unusual mistakes. At the time, nobody paid much attention. They were simply mixed into circulation. Decades later, collectors began discovering that some of these accidental varieties were far scarcer than anyone imagined. And that's where the story becomes interesting. Before we examine the valuable errors, it's important to understand how a Lincoln cent was created. Large metal strips were fed into punching machines that cut out blank discs known as planchets. These planchets were cleaned, polished, and sent into coin presses. Inside the press, two dies struck the planchet with tremendous pressure, transferring Abraham Lincoln's portrait to one side and the Lincoln Memorial design to the other. When everything worked perfectly, a normal penny emerged. But when a die cracked, shifted, doubled, or became contaminated with debris, unusual coins could be produced. Those mistakes are what collectors hunt for today. Let's begin with one of the most commonly overlooked errors. A die crack occurs when the steel die develops a fracture after repeated use. Every coin struck afterward can show a raised line where that crack existed. Many people mistake these lines for scratches. They're not. Because the crack is in the die itself, the line appears raised above the coin's surface. Minor die crack examples on 1964 pennies often sell for around $10 to $50. More dramatic cracks stretching across. Lincoln's portrait or through major design elements can bring $100 to $500. Exceptional examples with large, visually impressive cracks have sold for even more when certified by professional grading services. At first glance, these coins may not seem exciting, but they represent the early stages of a die literally breaking apart during production. Now things start getting more dramatic. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not properly positioned inside the coin press. The result? Part of the design is missing, while a blank crescent-shaped area appears on the coin. The amount of missing design heavily influences value. A small 5% off-center strike may sell for $20 to $75. A 10% to 20% off-center example often reaches $100 to $300 when the strike becomes 40% to 60% off-center. While still showing the date, values can jump to $500 to $2,000 or more. Collectors love these errors because they are instantly recognizable. No magnifying glass required. One glance tells you something unusual happened at the mint. This is where many serious collectors focus their attention. A doubled die occurs during die creation, not during the striking process. Certain letters, numbers, or design elements appear doubled because of a misalignment during die production. The key is looking for genuine doubling rather than machine doubling. On valuable doubled die examples, the separation is clear and distinct. A modest doubled die, 1964. Penny may bring $50 to $250, stronger. Examples can reach $500 to $3,000. The most dramatic and highly certified specimens have attracted even greater attention from advanced collectors. The reason is simple. Every coin struck by that doubled die carries the same distinctive feature, making it a recognized collectible variety rather than a random defect. Imagine a tiny piece of cloth, grease, wire, or debris landing on a coin during production. When the dies strike the planchet, that object interferes with the design transfer. The result is called a struck-through error. Some appear as mysterious indentations. Others create missing details that look almost impossible. Minor struck-through grease errors often sell between $20 and $100 more. Dramatic examples involving foreign material can bring $150 to $800. Rare and visually impressive struck-through errors sometimes exceed $1,000, especially when the obstruction created a unique appearance. These errors are fascinating because they capture a split-second accident inside the minting process. As dies continue deteriorating, cracks can evolve into something much larger. When a piece of the die breaks away entirely, the resulting coin may show a raised blob of metal called a cud. These errors are much scarcer than ordinary die cracks. Small cud errors often trade in the $50 to $200 range. Larger, dramatic cuds can command $300 to $1,500. Collectors enjoy them because they visibly demonstrate a die reaching the end of its life. In some cases, the missing die section is so large that part of the coin's design disappears beneath a massive raised area. Now here's the part many people overlook. Finding an error is only half the equation. Condition can multiply value dramatically. A circulated error coin with wear may sell for a few $100s. The same error in mint state condition could be worth several times more. Professional grading companies examine surface preservation, strike quality, luster, eye appeal, overall originality. A coin graded MS-65 will generally command much more than one graded MS-63. And when grades move into the MS-66 and MS-67 range, prices can increase rapidly. That's why collectors often say they're not just buying the error. They're buying the quality of the error. Remember that $19,000 figure from the beginning? That kind of money isn't paid for an average 1964 penny. It is typically reserved for extraordinary examples. Coins with major recognized varieties, exceptional preservation, rare minting mistakes, or a combination of all three. The overwhelming majority of 1964 pennies are worth only a small premium over face value. But every year, collectors continue discovering overlooked pieces in old collections, inherited jars, and forgotten coin albums. And occasionally, one turns out to be something special. The next time you spot a 1964 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it as ordinary pocket change. Look closely at the date, the lettering, the edges, and the overall strike. A faint crack, a shifted design, a double detail, or an unusual indentation could be the clue that transforms a common cent into a sought-after collectible. Because somewhere among the billions of 1964 pennies struck decades ago, a few remarkable survivors are still hiding in plain sight, and one of them might be waiting to be discovered the moment you decide to take a closer look. A seemingly ordinary 1971 Lincoln penny has been connected to values reaching nearly $33,000, and the strangest part is that some of these coins spent decades hiding in old jars, dresser drawers, and forgotten collections before anyone realized their true significance. Today, we're tracking the clues behind one of the most exciting penny treasure hunts collectors still pursue. Imagine opening a rusty coffee can filled with pennies collected over generations. Thousands of coins spill across the table. Most look identical, copper-colored, worn, forgettable. Then one catches your attention, a dark-looking 1971 penny. Maybe it's heavily toned. Maybe it appears almost black from decades of oxidation. Most people would ignore it. But experienced treasure hunters know something important. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries begin with a coin everyone else overlooks, not because dark color automatically creates value, but because rare errors, varieties, and exceptional conditions often remain hidden behind ordinary appearances. And the 1971 Lincoln cent has produced some remarkable surprises. The early 1970s were years of intense coin production. America's economy was moving fast, vending machines were everywhere, and demand for small change remained enormous. Mint presses operated continuously. Millions upon millions of Lincoln cents rolled off production lines. Whenever that level of production occurs, mistakes become inevitable. Tiny mechanical failures, deteriorating dies, misaligned strikes, unexpected debris. Most errors escaped unnoticed into circulation. Years later, collectors began identifying unusual examples that stood far apart from ordinary pennies. The hunt was on, and it continues today. Every treasure has an origin story. For the 1971 Lincoln cent, it began with large coils of metal, machines, punched circular blanks called planchets from those metal strips. The planchets were cleaned and prepared before entering powerful coining presses. Inside the press, two engraved dies struck the blank with tremendous force. Lincoln's portrait appeared on one side. The Lincoln Memorial appeared on the other. Everything had to align perfectly. When it didn't, valuable errors were born. Some were subtle, others were dramatic. All became potential targets for treasure hunters. Let's begin with one of the most exciting discoveries. Doubled die varieties occur during die creation. The design. Elements appear doubled because of misalignment during the manufacturing process. Collectors search carefully around. The date lettering. Lincoln's features minor doubled die examples often sell between $50 and $250. Stronger examples can command $500 to $3,000. Exceptional certified varieties with significant collector demand may bring several $1,000s more. These coins are fascinating because the error isn't random. Every coin struck from that die carries the same distinctive fingerprint. Next comes one of the easiest clues to overlook. A die crack forms when a mint die begins to fracture from repeated use. Every subsequent strike transfers that crack onto the coin. The result appears as a raised line. Not a scratch, not damage, a genuine part of the coin. Small die crack examples generally sell for $15 to $80. More dramatic cracks often bring $100 to $500. Large crack networks crossing multiple design elements can exceed $1,000 in exceptional cases. Many collectors pass them by. Treasure hunters don't. Now the hunt becomes impossible to ignore. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet is not properly seated during striking. Part of the design disappears. A blank crescent-shaped section remains. The visual impact is immediate. Small off-center examples often sell between $30 and $120. Coins struck 20% off-center may bring $150 to $600. Major off-center strikes retaining. A visible date frequently command $1,000 to $4,500 or more. The farther off-center the strike, the more dramatic the discovery feels. It's like finding a treasure map with a missing section. Some of the most mysterious coins come from struck-through errors. Moments before striking, a foreign object enters the process. Grease, metal shavings, fabric fibers, other debris. The object blocks part of the design. Afterward, it disappears. The evidence remains permanently embedded in the coin. Minor struck-through grease errors often sell between $20 and $100. More noticeable examples commonly reach $150 to $700. Exceptional pieces with unusual strike characteristics may exceed $1,500. Everyone represents a split-second accident frozen in metal forever. Sometimes a die reaches its breaking point. Literally, a section of the die breaks away completely. Metal then flows into that missing area during striking. The result is called a cud. Collectors love cuds because they're dramatic and unmistakable. Small cuds often sell for $50 to $250. Larger examples frequently command $300 to $2,000. Especially dramatic specimens can sell for even more when certified. These coins tell the story of machinery operating beyond its limits. Another hidden treasure involves broad strikes. Normally, a collar surrounds the coin during striking. If that collar fails, the coin spreads outward. The penny becomes wider than normal. The rim often appears unusual. Broad strikes commonly sell between $40 and $200. Premium examples can reach $300 to $900. Because they're easy to identify, they remain popular among collectors searching for affordable error coins. Sometimes the treasure appears before the coin is even struck. If the blanking machine overlaps a previously punched hole, part of the future planchet is missing. The finished coin emerges with a curved section absent. Collectors call this a clipped planchet. Smaller clips often sell for $50 to $150. Larger clips frequently reach $200 to $1,000. Well-preserved examples with dramatic clips can command even stronger prices. Now we reach the factor many people underestimate: condition. Finding an error is exciting. Finding an error in exceptional condition is where serious value begins. Professional. Grading services evaluate surface preservation, original luster strike, quality eye appeal color. A worn error coin may sell for a modest premium. The exact same error in mint state condition can be worth many times more. High-grade examples often become the stars of major auctions. That's why experienced collectors never clean old coins. Cleaning frequently destroys the very qualities buyers value most. Let's return to the number that started this hunt. $33,000. That level is not typical for ordinary 1971 pennies. Those extraordinary values are generally associated with exceptional high-grade specimens, major varieties, rare errors, or combinations of rarity and preservation that few coins achieve. Most 1971 cents remain worth only a small premium. But history has repeatedly shown that remarkable treasures can remain hidden for decades before someone notices the details, and those discoveries often begin exactly the same way, with a second look. The next time a dark-toned or ordinary-looking 1971 Lincoln penny appears in a coin jar, collection, or forgotten box, don't dismiss it too quickly. Examine the lettering, study the date, search for doubling, cracks, clips, missing details, unusual shapes, or evidence of a striking mishap. Because somewhere among the millions of surviving 1971 pennies, valuable treasures are still hiding in plain sight. And the next coin that leaves collectors speechless might already be sitting in someone's collection, waiting for the moment an observant treasure hunter finally uncovers its secret. A single 1975 Lincoln penny has shocked collectors with values approaching $19,000, and the most surprising part is that similar coins have been pulled from ordinary collections, old coffee cans, and forgotten penny jars. Today, we're tracking down the hidden clues that could turn a common-looking cent into a collector's treasure. Picture this. You're digging through a dusty box of old coins inherited from a relative. Most of the pennies look identical, brown, worn, and seemingly unremarkable. Then one catches your eye. The date reads 1975. At first, it seems like nothing special. After all, hundreds of millions were made. But experienced collectors know a secret. The 1975 Lincoln cent sits in a fascinating corner of modern coin collecting. It belongs to a period when production demands were high, mint equipment worked around. The clock and mistakes occasionally slipped into circulation unnoticed. Those mistakes are what treasure hunters search for, not because every 1975 penny is valuable, but because a tiny percentage escaped the mint-carrying clues worth real money, and some of those clues are hiding in plain sight. The mid-1970s were busy years for American coin production. The country was preparing for the upcoming bicentennial celebrations, commerce was expanding, and demand for coins remained enormous. Mint facilities were pushing out massive quantities of cents to keep up. Whenever production speeds increase, opportunities for errors increase as well. Dies wear down, machines drift out of alignment, foreign material finds its way into the striking process. Most mistakes are caught, some are not. And decades later, collectors are still finding them. That's why searching through 1975 pennies remains one of the most exciting treasure hunts in modern numismatics. Every Lincoln cent started as a blank metal disc called a planchet. These planchets traveled through enormous presses where two steel dies struck the design onto the metal. The pressure was tremendous. Each strike had to be perfectly aligned. Each die had to remain intact. Each planchet had to arrive in exactly the right position. When everything worked correctly, a normal penny emerged. When something went wrong, an error coin was created. And that's where our hunt begins. One of the most overlooked discoveries involves die cracks. Think of the coin die as a tool enduring millions of powerful impacts. Eventually, tiny fractures can develop. Those fractures leave raised lines on the coins they strike. To an untrained eye, they may look like scratches, but collectors know better. A genuine die crack becomes part of the coin itself. Smaller die crack examples often sell for $15 to $75. More dramatic cracks crossing Lincoln's portrait or stretching through lettering can bring $100 to $500. Exceptional specimens with highly visible crack patterns occasionally exceed those figures. Finding one feels like uncovering evidence from the final days of a worn-out mint die. Now the hunt gets more exciting. An off-center strike occurs when the planche isn't sitting properly when struck. The result is impossible to ignore. Part of the design is missing, replaced by a blank, curved area. Collectors love these errors because they're instantly visible. Minor off-center examples may sell for $30 to $100. Coins struck 15% to 25% off-center often reach $150 to $500. More dramatic examples showing 40% to 60% displacement while retaining the date can bring $800 to $3,000 or more. The farther off-center the strike, the more attention it attracts. It's like finding a treasure map with half the picture missing. This is where serious hunters slow down and inspect every detail. A double die occurs during die creation itself. Letters, numbers, or design elements appear doubled because the die was improperly aligned during manufacturing. The key is strong, clear separation, not blurry machine doubling, not wear. Real doubling. Minor doubled die examples often sell between $50 and $250. Stronger varieties can command $500 to $2,500. The most desirable examples can attract significantly higher bids when certified and authenticated. These coins are especially exciting because the error originates from the die itself. Every coin struck from that die carries the same fingerprint. Imagine a tiny piece of debris landing on a planche moments before the strike. Maybe grease, maybe cloth fibers, maybe a fragment of material from the machinery. The dies strike anyway. The foreign object blocks part of the design. The result is called a struck-through error. Small struck-through grease errors often trade for $20 to $100. More dramatic examples can reach $150 to $700. Rare struck-through objects creating unusual patterns have sold for $1,000 or more. Each one tells a story that lasted only a fraction of a second inside the minting press. Yet that moment remains permanently frozen in metal. Sometimes a die doesn't merely crack. It breaks. When part of the die fractures and falls away, metal flows into the missing area during striking. This creates a raised lump known as a cud. Collectors actively search for these dramatic errors. Smaller cuds often sell for $50 to $200. Larger examples frequently bring $300 to $1,500. The most visually impressive pieces can exceed those numbers. They're dramatic because they show the actual failure of mint equipment during production. You aren't just seeing an error, you're seeing a breakdown in the manufacturing process itself. Another fascinating discovery involves broad-struck coins. These occur when the retaining collar fails to contain the planche during striking. The coin spreads outward and appears wider than normal. Design details may look stretched. The rim often appears unusual. Broad strikes commonly sell for $40 to $200. Sharper examples in excellent condition can bring $300 to $800 because they're easy to recognize. They remain popular among error collectors. Here's where many treasure hunters make a costly mistake. They focus only on the error. Professional collectors focus on the error and the condition. Condition can completely transform value. A circulated error worth $100 may jump to several $100s in mint state. A high-grade example with blazing, luster, and minimal marks can command multiples of the price achieved by worn specimens. Professional grading services evaluate surface preservation, strike quality, original luster eye appeal, overall rarity. Moving from MS63 to MS66 can sometimes mean the difference between hundreds and thousands of dollars. That's why experienced collectors handle potential discoveries carefully. One scratch can cost real money. Now let's return to that nearly $19,000 figure. Coins reaching those levels aren't ordinary examples. They're usually exceptional combinations of rarity, preservation, recognized varieties, and collector demand. Most 1975 pennies won't pay for dinner, but a tiny fraction possess characteristics that make collectors compete fiercely for ownership. And the remarkable thing is that many were discovered years after leaving the mint. Not in museums, not in vaults, but in everyday collections.